Ladies and gentlemen, today the Coalition is releasing its final budget costings. And today we confirm our pledge to the Australian people. We will put in place the tools necessary to help to grow the Australian economy, to give Australian families job security, importantly to give them more control of their lives. We are going to do this by improving the budget bottom line by over $6 billion. And we're going to start paying down Labor's mountain of debt by more than $16 billion. The Coalition has already announced over $31 billion of savings. Today, I'm announcing a further $9 billion of savings. As I said 10 days ago, we released the bulk of our savings. This all puts a lie to Mr Rudd's claim of a black hole of $70 billion. It makes a lie of Mr Rudd's claim that we're cutting everywhere. In fact, we're increasing expenditure in health and education. It makes a lie of Mr Rudd's claim that the Coalition isn't serious about laying down a package of reforms that actually grow the Australian economy. Because everything we have announced during this campaign and we announced today is about growing the productive capacity of the Australian economy. I want to emphasise the process that we've been through. We have been through one of the most comprehensive fiscal policy development programs in Australian politics. It's not an overnight program. We haven't made it up as we've gone along, as Labor has. The Coalition has released over 700 pages of detailed policies during this election campaign, compared with 200 from Labor. Now, by contrast, Labor has failed to release its costings. In fact, 13 policies are yet to be verified from Labor by anyone other than themselves. So all of our policies are fiscally responsible and independently verified. Now, I'm going to ask Andrew to say a bit about infrastructure, importantly, but I want to say how we're going to pay for infrastructure. There's a reallocation of funds on infrastructure. And this is a hugely important package to improve the productive capacity of the Australian economy. We are going to cut the growth in foreign aid to pay for necessary infrastructure here in Australia. We need to do this to grow our economy. We can only be a more generous nation to the rest of the world if we have a strong Australian economy. And so we are reducing the growth in foreign aid by $4.5 billion over the forward estimates to fund essential infrastructure here in Australia. There are modest additional savings. We are rephasing the Murray-Darling water buyback scheme, and we are obviously, and how important it is, going to focus on removing waste in the public sector. I say to the Australian people, if you're looking for cuts, the Coalition is going to cut the carbon tax, the Coalition is going to cut the mining tax, the Coalition is going to cut the waste. And on Saturday, I urge the Australian people to cut Kevin Rudd and a broken Labor Party. Throughout this campaign, they have lied. They continue to do so today. We are the only party that is delivering a program for growth, for job security, and giving back the Australian economy to the Australian people.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Joe. I'd just like to make 3 points on infrastructure and one on policy. The net effect of this package is an increase in growth. We're going for growth and going for growth in jobs while living within our means. One crucial element of this going for growth objective is the infrastructure program that's outlined in these documents. Let me make 3 points about the infrastructure program. Firstly, the Coalition has committed over $90 billion in road, rail freight and bridge funding around Australia, and will get to work immediately if we're elected on the weekend, and over $10 billion of that money will be spent within the forward estimates across literally dozens and dozens of projects. This will all be fully funded, as Joe has said, by setting new priorities within existing budget resources. Firstly, there's $6.3 billion of existing government funding in the nation building program. And secondly, again, as Joe has mentioned, $4.5 billion will be redirected from the overseas aid budget, because Australia can best provide sustainable assistance overseas when our economy is strong and the budget is in a sustainable surplus. That's why we propose to cut the growth of foreign aid and put the $4.5 billion into infrastructure. It is the responsible thing to do when you consider that we are currently borrowing from overseas to fund our foreign aid commitments that Australia is making. It is not sustainable to maintain that situation. Secondly, you'll see that we're front-end loading a lot of the infrastructure spend so that we get projects up and away. This compares with Labor, who are promising funding of so many projects, but so many of them are on the never-never, such as the Very Fast Train project, which I think is programmed to be introduced in 2035, would you believe? Yesterday's national growth figures confirmed that the economy is stalling. So there is an imperative that the incoming government does whatever it can to boost economic activity and job growth. Getting projects away quickly will boost productivity, it'll boost growth, and it'll boost growth in jobs. Thirdly, on infrastructure, we've committed to funding 80% of all nationally significant road projects, with the states committing 20%. This compares with the Rudd government, which has been funding an increasing number of projects on a 50-50 basis rather than the traditional 80-20 basis. And in this way, a coalition government will free up funds for the states to invest greater amounts in their traditional responsibility of urban rail. And finally, just on the policy, the lies and the nonsense peddled about the policies and the costings by Mr Rudd and Mr Bowen and Ms Wong have been blown away by the release today of these coalition costings. Today, as Joe said, it is the final step of a 3-year journey of progressive policy development with all of our 30 shadow ministerial colleagues, then the costing of those policies, and then the constant review of this work as the government's budget has steadily fallen apart. In fact, there are many policies, quite a lot of policies, that we've had to put aside because the budget would no longer sustain a lot of that policy work. We have 50 election policy documents totalling nearly 720 pages on the Liberal Party website. By contrast, the ALP has released 32 policies totalling nearly 180 pages. So we've clearly put out a lot more policy detail, and today we've confirmed that all of our policies are fully funded, and the net effect will be $16 billion reduction in debt, a $6 billion improvement in the budget bottom line, and an increase in jobs and growth.